I've got a customer who's refusing to pay. Let me explain. Back in about March of this year, I got a phone call from a company whose name shall remain anonymous, who said that they've got an EV charging job that they wanted us to do in our area. This is a company that basically gets leads for EV charging jobs from all over the country and then farms them out to local subcontractors. And to be honest, when they phoned me, first of all, alarm bells did start to ring, because I've always had a bit of a rule in business, which is never to subcontract for other people. There's a story from my past where my dad got really badly stung doing exactly that. And it taught me to avoid subcontracting for other companies. Make sure you watch to the end of the video, because I'll tell you the story about my dad. It's pretty tragic, but it affected me so much that I have a personal rule for my business, which is that as far as possible, we will avoid subcontracting for other companies. The problem was, when this lead came in, we were a bit tight for work. There was a few days in the schedule which were open, and we kind of needed the work. And I just felt like, okay, let's give it a go. You know, let's take it. We got the job booked in. I did a quote for it. And the funny thing was, very ironic actually, when I contacted the customer, so they sent me the customer's details, I recognised the customer's address. And it turned out it was a customer that I had done the garden lighting for when I just got qualified about 14 years ago. So it's kind of one of my customers. So when I saw it was his name and address, I was amazed. And I got in touch with him and I said, hey, I've been asked to quote for this electric vehicle charging point install. You might remember me, I did your garden lighting. We had a bit of a catch up and I went out to the site to do a survey. If you know us, you know from our previous install videos that you've probably seen that attention to detail for us is key, making sure that all of our installs are compliant, they're neat, and we only fit the best quality products. So we quoted for high quality charging points. I think it was a Zappi that we quoted for in this particular project. As far as I was concerned, that was what we would be fitting. The contracting company said to us, the client's accepted your quote, please go ahead and book it in. Got the job booked in, everything was hunky-dory. Then Lee turned up on the day to do this job, and something fishy happened. The charging point that we had quoted for was not there. Instead, they supplied this random rubbish quality charging point that we had never seen before, never heard of before, and Lee had to basically figure out his way through installing this junk charging point for the customer, who I think was none the wiser, because their national contractor had basically said to him, you know, this is the charging point that we're going to fit or whatever, and our kind of quality and standards got lost in translation through this other company. So just to explain, for electric vehicle charging point installations here in the UK, there have been grant funds available to pay towards the cost of installations at domestic properties to help customers basically with the cost of installing a charging point. These OZEV grants have to be applied for by the contractor on behalf of the customer, and then the contractor claims the money directly from the government and gives a discount to the customer. This particular install was a grant install. So the job got done, we did a good job, everything was fine, customer was happy. Although we were not really that happy with the actual quality of the charging point. It is what it is, it worked, it was safe, fine, whatever. So we send in our invoice to this particular contractor, and guess what happened? Weeks go by, no money comes through. So we have a system where we chase up payments on a regular basis. So we send an email reminder, we send another email reminder, we send a third email reminder, nothing. So then we start to chase by phone. So we phone the company, they send us all around the houses. Eventually we get to the person that we need to speak to, and this is what they say. We're not going to pay you until we've received our grant money. This contractor has apparently still not been paid by OZEV their grant money, and therefore they are not paying us the full amount of the job. And we're not talking a small amount of money here, it's hundreds of pounds, right? So we're sitting here, hundreds of pounds down. The customer who we worked for, this main contractor, is refusing to pay us until they get their money from OZEV. Now, I'd love to know in the comments from you guys, what would you do in this situation? Because as far as I see it, there are a few options. I can get legal on their butts, basically, and pursue payment through the small claims court, for example, because at the end of the day, we have payment terms and conditions that contractors agree to when they choose to go ahead with our services. They have breached those terms and conditions. We are within our right to actually charge them interest on the money that they owe us until they pay us. So we could go down that route of pursuing it legally. Second option is we could just let it slide and say, you know what, it's not worth the hassle and stress of chasing it up. Forget it, we'll just write it off. But for me, that stinks to do that, because you shouldn't let people get away with this kind of stuff. At the end of the day, if people are in the habit of not paying others for services that they have rendered, and rendered properly, they need to be taken to justice for that, because that is not right, in my opinion. If I owe somebody money for a service that they have provided for me, if I'm happy with the service that they've done, I will pay them straight away. And if there's ever a delay, it's usually just because the invoice has got lost in the junk mail folder or something like that. I think that everyone should be the same. Okay, some companies, you give them a 30-day terms or something if they're a big company and that's what they ask for, but more than that, it's just not right. And in this day and age where things are getting tight financially around the world, although it may seem like a fairly small amount of money, a few £100s, that could be make or break for certain companies. Now, if we zoom out and look at the bigger picture here, this is a little bit of a problem that the government is causing as well, because OZEV, with all these grants, it's supposed to help people, it's supposed to help customers, it's supposed to help contractors. But with them not paying the grant money quick enough, they're causing serious cash flow issues for a lot of contractors, us included, because we had £10,000 owed to us by OZEV, which was owed for about 3 or 4 months before they paid us that grant money. So we've been in a similar boat to what this contractor is in. Now, maybe this contractor cannot physically pay us. Maybe the money is not physically there in the bank. I struggle to believe that, because they're doing hundreds, if not thousands of installs. They should have the cash flow to be able to pay the subcontractors who are working for them. And maybe they're on really tight margins because they're offering these charge point installs for next to nothing. And maybe because of that, they've got themselves into a little bit of trouble. I don't know, and only time will tell whether this company is still here in a year or more's time. But one thing's for sure, it winds me up when people owe you money and they refuse to pay without a genuine reason. What about you guys? What is your story? I'm sure there are some horror stories out there from you guys of customers who've refused to pay. I'd love to know your stories in the comments below. So I said at the beginning of the video that I'd share with you the story that happened to my dad that changed my opinion of working for contractors. So here it is. When I was an apprentice, me and my dad and his company, because he had a few people working for him at this time, we wired up this swimming pool. Big swimming pool, leisure centre kind of building, and we were subcontracting, or my dad's company was subcontracting for a building contractor to do the work. A lot of money. I think it was about £30,000, which probably about 20 years ago actually, that was a lot of money. It still is a lot of money now. So we did this install, it was absolutely beautiful, everything was great, worked perfectly. The building was nearly completed, and guess what happened? The main contractor went bust. They went under. Although the swimming pool had paid them, they didn't pay us because the money was gone. And so my dad had to take a hit of £30,000 approximately. He'd paid for all the materials, all the labour for months, putting all of his sweat, blood and tears into this install to make it absolutely fantastic, and he didn't get a penny back from it. And I remember him saying to me that he felt like just going in there and ripping the sockets off the walls, you know, ripping the lights out of the ceilings, because all of that stuff was in there. He'd paid for it himself, the client was using it, but he didn't get the money back for it. So it was like he'd done that whole install for free. And it nearly drove my dad into bankruptcy himself. He only just scraped through it, and he did, and his company continued on, and I was able to become a qualified electrician with him and learn a powerful lesson, which was don't put all your eggs in one basket and avoid working for other contractors if possible, especially on big scale projects like that. Now you might say I'm being paranoid, and a lot of you out there, you might work regularly for builders and it might all be fine. I don't know. I just tried to avoid it personally because of that incident that happened in my life that has kind of scarred me and put me off from working for main contractors. That's the story, and it is a sad one because this kind of thing shouldn't happen, but unfortunately it does. This is real life. And in business, there are ups and downs and there are big challenges. What am I going to do about this customer who's refusing to pay? Well, I am going to pursue it. I'm going to do everything that I can to make sure we get that money, out of principle more than anything. So stay tuned for an update and make sure that you do like and subscribe if you haven't subscribed already to the channel, because we do post videos all about the life of an electrician. We show our work usually, it's not just me ranting to the camera. We do actually show the work that we do, all the different forms of electrical work and the kind of daily life of running an electrical business. So I hope you have benefited from this video in some way. If you have, or if you know somebody who's going through a similar situation, make sure you share the video out to somebody else who might benefit from it. And I'll leave a playlist after this of other videos that are similar about business, where I share my experiences and some of the challenges that I've faced and some of the solutions that I've found, because I think that as business people, we owe it to each other to share our joys, share our losses, and learn from each other's mistakes as well. So thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you on the next one.